Up until around 20 years ago, I was a director in our family business and one of the co-owners. The other co-owners were my 9 siblings, 7 brothers and 2 sisters, and it was actually great interacting with them in terms of the business. The folk we employed were brilliant, 350 employees. We knew a lot of them well from 20, 30 years earlier than that, from when I was a kid. That's the way family businesses are. So everything seemed rosy, the business was really successful, but something wasn't right, and that built up over time. I think that the first thing was that I didn't really want to be in that kind of business, or maybe in fact in business at all. I sort of fell into it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was highly educated, I had a law degree, but didn't want to be a lawyer. So I found myself in this family business, which on the surface looks great, but something was nagging away at me. And I think that degree of uncertainty or dissatisfaction in my mind made me more liable to being stressed at work. And it was a long day, we worked hard. I was going in from 7 o'clock in the morning till 6 at night. And I found the everyday issues, challenges we've got in any form of work, they would cause stress, and I used to think of it as every hour I got another level of stress. So started off the day 0 stress, finished the day at stress level 11. And much of this was about allowing little things to niggle at me. And in any business, any walk of life, there are things that you don't like, things that don't go your way. You have meetings where there's different views and that leads to conflict. I've never really liked conflict at all. And yet it's a normal and can be a healthy, constructive part of living. But it didn't feel that way to me, and I found that not only did I get stressful, a sort of tightness and frustration, but also I got tired. Stress tires certainly me, and I think stress tires most people. So by the time I went home at 6 o'clock at night, I was pretty knackered, to be honest, and that then meant that I wasn't the best of fathers, the best of husbands to my family. Tried to be, but when you've got limited energy, limited resources, when your mind's on all these other things that have been discussed and explored for the 11 hours previous in your day, and also when a lot of those issues then become ingrained in the family because it's a family business, so it's not just work. You might be disagreeing with your brother, you might be disagreeing with your sister, and they then go home and talk about it to their spouses and families, and they get involved in discussions and disagreements. So you couldn't really get away from the issues of business because it pertains to family as well. So all of this was an everyday presence, and for a number of years I was aware of it, but only as the feelings. I wasn't aware of cause, I wasn't aware that I could do anything about this. And by chance I was saved, if you like, several years after I started work, about sort of a dozen or 10 years after I started work, when as a family we went into Borders Bookshop in Glasgow in Buchanan Street, now sadly not there, and we were picking books for the kids and for ourselves as we were about to go on holiday to Germany or Holland, I think it was. And I saw out the corner of my eye bright book display, and it was about the Dalai Lama. And I knew about the Dalai Lama, I knew about the situation in Tibet, Dalai Lama had won the Nobel Peace Prize, the Tibetans were under occupation by China, and I'd been involved in politics and interested in those sort of things. But I knew nothing about his spiritual side. And apart from that whole stereotype everybody's got of the Buddha, as this serene person sitting down meditating, whatever meditating means. And I looked around and I was being a bit cynical, sceptical about it, but I thought I'd buy a book or two about Buddhism and what it meant. And I guess probably unconsciously my mind was saying, try anything, you're stressed out of your box, try anything. And so that's what I did, and it made a massive difference. Even doing it, trying to understand what meditation actually is, trying to understand what the mind is, and this is before the internet, so I couldn't just Google neuroscience or Google does meditation work. It was a lot harder in those days. But what I found was, even following the instructions, the vague instructions in a book, I was able to find myself much more peaceful and able to reduce the amount of stress from 11, stress level 11, as I called it when I went home, to maybe about stress level 5 or 6. And then when I started getting really good at it, when I started getting proper instruction and training in it, I could whittle down the stress to the point where it became 0. And unknown to me at the time, that was going to stand me in enormously good stead when we started having real difficulties, financial difficulties in the business, and the bank was incredibly uncooperative, and rather than getting either despondent about that or angry about it, both of which would be understandable and enjoyable, I actually found I was able to step back from it all, get a clear mind about what was at stake, what mattered, and do the best we can. And you can't do more than the best you can. And you can't get clearer than a clear mind to be able to think these things through. So while I would say all hell was breaking loose around us and eventually led to the loss of our business and the loss of all those jobs for those wonderful people who I worked with, I was able to stay calm and not too badly affected by it. So I found that quite revelatory, the fact that you could learn techniques and learn about how the mind works, and you don't just have to accept what the mind produces, which is usually, in the circumstances I've just described, anger, frustration, irritation, and a real loss of energy and a real loss of enthusiasm for life. So it was an astonishing thing to learn, which then I obviously later trained to teach this so that other people could benefit the way that I have.